Hey everybody, so today is November 11th, 2024. I believe this will go out on, let me see. One of these days I'm just going to be able to just snap this out. I guess that's how you get good at doing things. So this is going to be video 289. So 287 will go out tomorrow, the 12th. 288 will go out the 13th, and then 289 will go out the 14th. Um, Today is Veterans Day here in the United States for me. It was a couple days for you. I hope you had a good Veterans Day if you're here in the States. If you're not here in the States, I still hope you had a good November 11th. And if you're a veteran, again, we can never say it enough, but thank you for your service. Seriously. Um, I'm actually a veteran, but it is complicated. We'll just leave it at that. So, anyways, last time we did add this information icon and made it to where there's like a little hand that shows up. We did that by just doing it for this one. Uh, so basically, on this page, anytime there's a form help class, you'll get the I, which the implications is as like on any other page, they won't have it. So that could be like maybe something you'd want to have handle at a higher level. Um, if you tried to make a class at a higher level, it would not. The way Angular works, it holds everything so that different styles don't affect each other. So you would have to do something a little bit more complicated to get that to work everywhere. It takes some thought, and there's a few moving parts, so it could be confusing. Um, I'm not that worried about it. Worst case scenario, I'll have 5 forms that I need to add this form help to. Doesn't bother me that much. I'm sure it bothers some people. Um, and then uh, maybe one day I'll just go in and show you how to update it everywhere. But I don't even think I can give a good example at this point. So it would be a very abstract conversation that I'd rather, if we are going to go down that road, I'd rather show it in the fixing an issue and showing it being fixed. Right now, we'd be fixing an issue and have to sort of imagine the problem. So I guess when the problem comes, we may fix it. If a problem comes, that's another thing. But let's move on from there. And then, one other thing that was sort of off topic that I want to talk about is that the whole biggest reason for this application is to learn about Three.js, but we spend all our time on Angular, and I do find that to be a pro. I don't know if "problem" is the right word, but it's a something that is very 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 common in everywhere I work, everywhere I have ever worked. You end up spending a lot of time on Angular and not as much time in the domain, which, like, if you're new to a place, like, you really only have so much bandwidth. Like, if you're like a junior developer and you sort of kind of know Angular, and then you come in and now you need to try to understand the domain you're working in as well, that can be very very difficult, and it is frustrating in this scenario that we're spending all our time on mat icons and form groups and stuff like that, and validators and stuff like that, instead of on Three.js. But that would be frustrating if you think about it from a corporate environment where you're supposed to get stuff done. This is not really a corporate environment, and I've spent so much time in corporate environments that I have a hard time not thinking in the terms of corporate environments and thinking in the terms of, like, oh man, some manager is going to get mad at me because uh, we haven't made any progress. They like to see progress. There's no progress. All we're doing is talking about icons and stuff, and that annoys them because typically they're paying a ton of money for you to work on this stuff, and like every few months they have to do like sort of um, they have to do meetings where they explain to the people above them, like if you have a director, if you have a manager, and then they have a director, they have to explain to like VPs and stuff like that what kind of progress has been made, and they like to see the progress. They want a demo where they see something cool. They do not want to see a little eye icon with a bunch of validations and stuff like that. They don't want to see that. That's not going to impress them. Um, but this is not that kind of environment. This is a learning environment. And we have learned a lot about ThreeJS because fog density is not a word that we all, that's just part of our normal vocabulary. And exponential fog is not a concept that is just obvious, and linear fog is not a concept that is obvious. And how those pieces work together, and what the fact that they have something called a fog density and a background color that we see literally every day. We see, oh, there's fog, and it's exponential. It has a background color, is seeping information subconsciously into our heads, so making us more comfortable with these concepts. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that is actually very good for our heads. And it's kind of thing that you kind of get as a side effect of learning, of just being in the room, and that's good. So I was thinking about that. But anyway, so the next step is going to be to wire up this click of this event into a function. And then depending on time, the next thing will be to go to Angular material and find something to use. I believe they have two candidates of things that you can use for this task. And it is weird because we do think of Angular material as being, or I always think of Angular material as being something that's about look and feel and underlines and spacing and stuff like that. And I don't really think of it much as in the form of behavior. And honestly, it is much more important from a behavior perspective. And other, even more abstract things like being like color contrasts and stuff like that. Like they focus on a lot of things that are sort of not stuff that you would have to think about in a really super serious environment, and they sort of just deal with that stuff for you. But anyways, for now, this is not part of Angular material, and that's like, we need to make that clickable. So let's just do that. Let's do that. So this is our matte icon that only shows up if we've ever had a fog error. See, I love that. I love being able to just look at this and go, okay, this is a matte icon. Oh, it shows up if we've ever had a fog error. Like, I like the fact that we can just do that. We copy and paste this matte suffix. I don't know. I don't know what it does. I haven't dug into it. I don't think it's worth digging into. And then this is all on one line because that is the standard. As I like to mention, I have a bit of I'm a bit triggered, but I do like to put this onto multiple lines for the sake of Git, when you're working on large teams, so that if you need to add something in here and I need to add something in here, we don't end up having a Git conflict that is probably not that big of a deal, but is going to be hard to figure out the day before the sprint ends, and who knows what stuff they're doing on the other side, and you don't understand why somebody added something, and it's just easier to do that. If they were to add, like if somebody else were to add another class, I think that's usually pretty obvious, but like if they're adding another directive or something like that, and you're adding a directive, and you guys were kind of working on the same thing, and these two directives sort of interact in a bad way, it's just all kinds of stuff that could be difficult and it's kind of hard to see them if they're all on one, if it's all on one line. So I am going to add a click handler. The way you do that is you put these parens and you type in click, and that is not JavaScript. I don't know how it becomes JavaScript. It clearly becomes JavaScript during the transpilation process. So when you do ng build and it moves everything into the build folder, it does some sort of compiling and converts that into like on click events in JavaScript or whatever. Who knows what it does. and then we need to give it a function which does not exist yet. So it says, so we're going to say uh, launch uh, uh, launch info. We'll just call it dialog, and I think we should send in the token. I don't know if we're going to need this, but for now I'm just going to do invalid positive float. So basically we're going to call a function, we're going to tell it that we would like you to launch an info dialog, and we'd like you to launch it for the invalid positive float token. This will be emotionally jarring for some people because they will want this to be a variable as opposed to a hard-coded value, and there's arguments to be made. So we are getting an error because we don't have a function named that in our TypeScript. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll just add it at the end. We will call this dot. We know it must be a validation token type, and we only need one of them. It's only going to be one. I'm pretty sure it's not going to return anything. And we want to close that. Hit save. Now I like to do this. I like to do alert and the name of the function. And then just to make sure everything is working. I cannot even begin, or wired up right. I can't even begin to tell you like how many times, at least a dozen times, where we just did all kinds of code all the way, and then we're like, why is this not working? And it was just that it wasn't wired right at the beginning, and we spent hours debugging why things weren't working. So it just takes a second. Literally 99 times out of 100 that works, and there's no reason to leave it that way. I mean to even check it. But man, that 1 out of 100 times takes so much time that it makes up for that. I will generally turn this to a console log right after I've validated that it is actually working. So where are we? We are at 13 minutes. This is a good time to stop. Next time what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Angular material website and look up, just go through the components and see if we can figure out which component we want to use. If I remember correctly, back in the day when I was working on this stuff professionally, this specific Angular material and all that, I still work in Angular professionally, but not, we don't use Angular material. There was two flavors of this. There was one that came up from the bottom and sort of modaled into the middle, and then there was one that, like, I think it came up from the upper right or something like that. And one was like matte dialogue, I think, and the other one was like matte bottom or something. And they did have some slight differences based on like how you would pass data in or whatever. Ideally, in my head, and I don't think this is possible, what I would like is to be able to just have a component that I create that I can just tell it to launch that component, and then that component has a required input that is the token, and then it goes and asks the service what the data is, and that it shows the icon, the same icon, so it just connects those emotionally for the user. They're like, oh, okay, I'm in the right place because I'm looking at the same icon and the text. And that's what I'm hoping I can do. I do not think that's feasible. I think if you're going to create a component, you have to I believe you have to like instantiate it in some weird way. You have to include it as an include on the top, and then you have to pass it in somewhere weird way, and but I don't remember if it's that way for both of them. If one of them is a little easier to set up in the way I would like to do it, I'll do it that way. But if not, so that's what I'm thinking. Anyways, happy coding. Bye.